At Mina Zayed, Abu Dhabi, just before sunrise on a warm Wednesday in late May, a stevedore rolled one sealed blue drum off a pallet tagged for a private marina. The manifest said cleaning solvent. The weight log said far more than a single man could lift. A port camera frame with a clear timestamp showed the drum arriving from a yacht that, on its public AIS trace, never left its berth that night. If the woman flew out on a seaplane at noon, why did the systems say she never crossed a gate? Before we continue, consider subscribing for more investigations every 2 days. Names and some details are changed. Nadia Karlin worked in maritime insurance in Warsaw. She was in her early 30s, patient with ledgers, quick with patterns, and slow with politics. Her competence lived in clean columns, hull numbers, port calls, fuel slips, and the small math that keeps vessels honest. Her soft spot was personal. Arya Demir, a friend from a short contract in Dubai, sent bright messages for months about a man she had met at a business meeting. He had a title that opened doors. He wore the mask of a quiet investor. He did not need to bargain. He did not need to rush. The trigger did not look like a trap. It looked like a story people want to believe. Arya said he had been alone for a long time and did not pretend otherwise. He sent gifts that felt like decisions, not gestures. A white car with a temporary plate. A small townhouse in a gated compound, leased in her name by a company she had never heard of before. A yacht, not new, but polished, logged under a shell with an office box on Hamdan Street. The cover was tidy. A private partnership, a family office, a routine share transfer with a notarized stamp. A titled businessman could do this before lunch and not be late for a meeting. Nadia had seen Status Theatre before. In the Gulf, function and symbol share the same skin. The man's name, in public, belonged to a branch of a ruling family. In private, he was just Faris al-Hamdan, a figure who preferred staff to speak for him. His calendar moved on other people's time. He arrived late and left early while aides arranged the next hour. It looked like control. It passed for charm. The mask fit. They left for a honeymoon week at a remote resort reachable by seaplane. Nadia watched from a distance, then closer, because friends still send screenshots. The itinerary PDF showed a standard path: city to island, island to city, city to lunch at the marina, last night on the yacht before the week turned back into work. Last night on the quiet details aligned. The e-ticket number, spelled out digits, matched the airline's pattern. The border e-gate enrollment returned a green pass. A hotel keycard hash sat under Arya's name in a confirmation email from a server in Malay. The world around Faris was precise. Red flags raised their hands and then rested. He kept phones off the table at dinner and in a drawer during meetings. He asked Arya to store her laptop in the cabin safe when guests visited the yacht, because privacy mattered. He signed a non-disclosure addendum for her modeling contract that restricted public life portrayal. It felt like care. Nadia's messages to Arya slowed. Adult lives drift like this. The mask was working. The binding step arrived dressed as joy. Arya posted a short clip of dripping salt water on teak, a wrist with a new bracelet, a wake carved into flat evening sea. Bracelet. The next morning's calendar held an entry: return to the city by noon, lunch at the club, a drive to a new house signed over for tax simplicity. Travel was booked. A handoff was scheduled. No one in Nadia's office would have called it risk. They would have called it settled. The day ended with the yacht clearing its berth for an hour on paper, then returning. The AIS trace showed a straight line, then a straight line back, like a pen lifted and set down again. The resort posted a generic farewell to a celebrity couple, without names. The mask smiled for the cameras and then closed like a door. A courier delivered a bouquet to Nadia's desk the next morning. sent from a florist in Abu Dhabi, with a ribbon saying only soon. She took it as a joke from a colleague. The card carried no sender. From a colleague. It sat next to her monitor while she refreshed a flight status that still read, "Arrived." A commitment had been made. A path had been chosen. The next step would not be gentle. Money, time, travel, and social exposure rose together like tide under a moon. The yacht's insurance rider doubled, then tripled, to cover high-value interiors. A townhouse in Khalifa City shifted from a short corporate lease to a long private tenancy under a trustee. A second property in Dubai Hills appeared in the land department system under a numbered holding. Each record wore a neat stamp date and a quiet transfer fee. Each line promised permanence, a fee. The resort posted a carefully lit photo of a table for two with a caption about privacy. Staff signed non-disclosure forms. A private butler logged entry times into a hotel system that pinged every time a door opened. Aria's modeling agent posted congratulations. The internet did what it does when a story looks complete. It completed it. Small things asked to be explained away. A bank alert timeline flagged a fresh series of large transfers through a local bank with a warning about unusual beneficiary concentration. The compliance team spoke to a lawyer, who spoke to a family office, who spoke to the bank. The alerts went quiet. A smartwatch log from Aria's phone uploaded late one night with gaps the size of hours. The yacht's AIS signal flickered off for a short window near an industrial channel, then returned with a clean track. The pattern said rough coverage. The mind said, do not be a cynic. Nadia's competence pulled her in without permission. She read a port circular about new seal numbers, then watched a clip of Faris stepping onto the dock without taking a phone from a pocket. She saw a photo of Aria holding a laptop with a glare that hid the screen. She wondered why a woman who loved to write late into the night suddenly wrote less. One system, then another, entered the story. An itinerary chain from a travel concierge showed timestamps that drifted by minutes between booking and confirmation. A keycard audit at the resort recorded Aurea entering the villa a little after 10 and not leaving again. A clubhouse visitor log listed Faris at a lunch that began at 1. Visitor log, the ferry manifest for resort staff, showed an extra crate on a night shipment marked for engine care. Nadia sent a polite request to a contact at a shipping agent to confirm the yacht's call at the marina. The reply was clinical. A short move logged, a return logged, no fuel dispensed. She looked again at the AIS trace and saw the same straight lines. In her field, straight lines pretend to be boring. Real sea tracks wobble. The non-reversible step arrived between morning coffee and lunch. Aria's name vanished from a contractor roster. Her model agency updated a page to show on hiatus. A text from a mutual acquaintance in Dubai arrived without context. A new house key, a silent room, personal items left in a canvas tote by a wardrobe. A driver said he was instructed to store 2 suitcases until further notice. A lawyer from a private firm sent an email to Nadia about misuse of personal data after she inquired about a property record. Someone was watching queries. By late afternoon, the airline booking for Aria's return flight showed flown the border e-gate history, accessible to sponsor companies, showed an exit. But the hotel keycard audit still had her in the room after the supposed departure time. The CCTV camera at the seaplane dock did not show her face in any midday queue. The contradiction sat there. The mask began to slide. 2 evenings later, a blue drum rolled from a yacht berth to a service truck at the marina, and then to a warehouse near Gate 12. And then a dock worker wrote a number on a paper manifest and drew a line through a box that said chemical. The camera saw the drum. The AIS feed drew a neat straight line again. Nadia set down her cup and opened a new notebook. A step had been taken that could not be walked back. She understood what that meant. The world failed a promise. The resort confirmed that Aria checked out, but the audit log showed her room door opening hours after the seaplane supposedly lifted. The eGate database logged an exit, but a customs officer at the city airport reported no match on a thermal camera grid during that hour. The airline PNR still read flown, yet a baggage reconciliation list carried an unclaimed bag with a tag in her name. Either the systems were wrong, or someone with access could make them look right. Wrong, or Nadia pulled the witness objects into a row and watched them deny one another. The Yacht AIS trace went dark for a brief window near an industrial pier, then returned as if nothing happened. The Marina visitor sticker serial assigned to a maintenance van matched the sticker seen on the service truck that later carried the drum. A port camera at Gate 12 showed the drum arriving at a warehouse that did not normally receive yacht waste. The bank alert timeline placed a wire to a logistics firm with a vague description of environmental service. The cover story arrived early and repeated often. It was simple. Aria left. She flew out. She needed space. A spokesperson used phrases like privacy and respect requests. A hotel clerk said, through a supervisor, that the villa was restored to standard. The story fit a press note. It never fit the logs. Leverage now moved to the center. It never fit the log. Aria's residency depended on her sponsor. In the Emirates, sponsorship holds passports, visas, and access to services. Authority can locate a file faster than a person. A misplaced offense becomes an exit ban. A careless phrase becomes a case. Nadia understood this because she had read more than one policy from more than one ministry while vetting claims. The message was not written, but it was plain. Stop looking. The constraint tightened in a corridor where the air felt cooler than the light outside. A security manager at the marina asked Nadia to wait in a side room while he verified her visitor pass. A woman from legal arrived with a printed letter that used careful language about defamation. The letter mentioned broadcast, even though no one had used that word. Someone assumed she would tell this story out loud. Nadia walked out with the letter and nothing else. She felt the small pull of fear that keeps people finished. Instead, she turned it into a process. She wrote down exact times and names on the back of the letter. She made a private backup of the AIS traces and the keycard audit screenshots to a cloud folder outside the region. She called a consular duty phone and left a message without opinions, only facts. That night, the port camera caught something the straight lines could not hide. The same service truck with the same visitor sticker drove a second loop past Gate 12. It stopped at a warehouse and idled. A blue drum sat on the ground for a long minute before it disappeared inside. The timestamp was clean. The angle was high. There was no way to confuse it with anything else. By morning, a rumor sat in a staff canteen about a smell in a warehouse and a visit from a plain clothes unit that left quickly. A junior worker told a friend to avoid that bay for a while. The friend told another friend. The string reached Nadia within hours. She had enough now to know what the contradiction meant. The system said departure. The cameras said disposal. A family office liaison sent Nadia a second letter, more formal, with a line about state actors and jurisdiction. The message beneath the message was that she had no safe way to speak. The threat was not loud. It did not need to be. She packed a small bag and booked a seat on a late flight to Warsaw. Before boarding, she filed a missing person report with a consular clerk who had to ask a supervisor how to take it. Consular clerk. She attached the AIS trace files, the keycard screenshots, and the port camera frames from Gate 12. She added a page from the Marina visitor sticker log with the serial numbers that matched the truck. She sent a copy to herself at a private address outside any corporate domain she had ever used. When the plane lifted, Nadia knew the next steps would not involve soft messages or polite calls. The mask had fallen. The mechanism that moved people and objects without leaving footprints was now visible around the edges. She could see the shape of it. She could also see the cost of touching it. The constraint had locked in. A new part of the story had to begin. The machine was not loud. It ran on access, silence, and favors. Sponsorship in the Emirates held a person's file like a handle. A family office liaison could pull that handle to make a visa move or stop. A marina manager could move a camera patrol list from one dock to another. A port contractor could change a waste stream from routine to sealed. None of it looked like crime when read one line at a time. Nadia mapped the pieces with plain tools, a spreadsheet of dates, places, and who held which key. The sponsor's public relations officer who filed e-gate enrollments. The travel concierge who issued seaplane vouchers. The marina security lead who controlled visitor sticker serials. The waste firm dispatcher who assigned the service truck with the matching sticker. The holding company that wired a fee to that dispatcher the morning a blue drum left the berth near Gate 12. Each name had a function. Each function touched a switch. Jurisdiction made every step heavier. In Warsaw, a consular desk could receive a missing person file and forward it. In Abu Dhabi, a public prosecution office could accept it or not. Time hurt the most. Office could accept it. Port footage rotated after a short cycle unless someone held it. Hotel keycard audits expired from view unless a manager marked them. Airline systems kept contradictory entries that no one outside could force to reconcile. A story could be tidied faster than a fact could be preserved. Pressure came from both directions. A lawyer for the family office wrote again. The letter now named Nadia. It stated that any publication tying a private citizen to a crime would be actionable. The letter included a line about local criminal insult, a phrase that could turn a simple post into a case. At the marina, a guard who had been polite 2 days earlier now asked her to wait outside the gate. Her pass would no longer scan. The message was to step back. The hope was that she would fold. She did not. She switched roles. Fold. She stopped asking for permission and started collecting what did not need it. Open cameras around the port recorded truck flows at broad angles. She clipped stills showing the service truck's route from the berth to the warehouse. Public records in Cyprus listed a fresh bank account for the numbered holding that bought the yacht. She pulled the routing data and synced it with the bank alert timeline she had already saved. A copy of the resort's property management software sat on a sales demo site with sample screens. She matched the look of that demo to the keycard audit printouts she held, so she could explain them simply to any officer who might not know the system. She also hardened herself. She wrote a factual narrative in clear sentences and signed it in front of a notary in Warsaw. And she placed a sealed memory stick with files and screenshots in a safe at a small law office for release if she went silent for a day. She set a call schedule with a single friend and a simple code. If she said the word saffron at the start of a call, it meant she felt watched. If she missed 2 calls in a row, the friend would walk the sealed envelope to a prosecutor. The friend did not need to wait. A senior investigator in Poland's Financial Intelligence Unit agreed to see her after a consular referral. The meeting room was small. The questions were orderly. He asked for objects, not feelings. She brought him the airline PNR with the exit time, the resort keycard audit with entries after that time, the port camera frames of the drum at Gate 12, the visitor sticker log that linked a serial to the truck and the truck to the waste firm, that linked a serial, and the bank wire that paid that firm within the same morning. He asked for copies. She gave him everything twice, on 2 sticks, and emailed checksums to show they matched. When she left the building, She carried lighter fear and heavier duty. A unit with authority now held the first thread. A liaison told her they would push the material through channels used for cross-border finance and serious crime. It would not be called what she felt it was. It would be called what law could carry. Suspicious transactions, false records, obstruction, labels that moved faster. She went home and set her phone face down. The first formal step had been taken. The plan did not begin with handcuffs. It began with 3 clean links. First link, a time-stamped port camera frame, showed a blue drum offloaded from a yacht berth to a service truck with a specific visitor sticker. Second link, a visitor sticker register. Bound that sticker to a logistics contractor and a specific plate. Third link, a bank transfer at mid-morning paid that contractor for solvent disposal, and the amount matched an invoice issued within the same hour. The 3 links could live on their own. Together they pointed to a node that could be touched outside the Gulf. The Warsaw liaison called back with a path. The logistics contractor's operations chief was due in Poznan for a trade expo on maritime services. He would host a booth and collect contracts. Travel records and a trade fair schedule matched the name and dates. An investigator from the National Police Central Bureau would coordinate with a prosecutor to open a financial crimes file around false invoicing tied to cross-border waste handling. The aim would be to image devices and capture the chain of paperwork, not to crack the case of a missing woman on foreign soil. It was the kind of lawful foothold available when the main door was shut. Nadia was asked for one more piece, a reason for the operations chief to meet privately. She built it from what had already happened privately. A short email to the firm's public address asked for correction of a disposal invoice that listed the wrong drum weight and the wrong berth number. She attached a copy of the manifest where the dock worker had scribbled the load as heavier than a single person could lift and had written the berth code by hand. The email suggested that payment would clear once the corrected form arrived with a wet signature. Simple, boring, believable. The firm replied the next day. A staffer said their operations chief would carry the corrected form to the expo. A time and a small meeting room were proposed. The message sounded routine. It was the sound the plan needed. The liaison laid out the rest. The plan needed. 2 plainclothes officers would wait in a room adjacent to the meeting space, with a short written order authorizing device imaging tied to the financial file. A prosecutor would sit 1 floor above, with a judge on call by phone, if a longer warrant became necessary. A digital forensics pair would bring a kit for quick capture of a phone and a laptop. An officer from the Financial Intelligence Unit would sit in a car to draft a request to freeze funds at the Cyprus Bank the moment a link to that account appeared on any device. The line from evidence to action had to be drawn in one movement or not at all. Nadia kept her part small. She would ask for the corrected form. She would check the berth code. She would say she needed to call a manager to confirm the change. That call would be the signal. The word in the first sentence would be saffron. Then she would walk to the hallway and not return. The day moved in tight steps. The expo floor hummed. The booth looked normal under bright lights and thin carpet. A man with a badge arrived at the meeting room, with a folder and a friendly look that did not reach his eyes. He placed the corrected form on the table. Berth code wrong, then right. Drum weight edited down. Signature line waiting. Nadia raised her phone, spoke the code in a sentence about scheduling, and stepped into the hallway to check with a manager. The door opened behind her before it could close fully. 2 officers entered with calm voices and a short paper. The operations chief's face changed shape without changing expression. He handed over his phone without argument, then his laptop. The forensics pair moved with quiet hands. A cable, a lead, a small device that read bits at speed. and wrote a log that no defense could unpick. The clock ran for longer than a coffee and shorter than a lunch. The kit clicked when finished and wrote a hash at the top of a printed chain of custody sheet. On the captured phone, a chat thread sat high in the list with a contact saved as FH Office. The thread held short lines with dates that matched the yacht's movements. One line asked for a short AIS silence near the industrial pier. Another asked for 2 blue drums and sent the visitor sticker serial to place on the truck. A third forwarded a list of e-gate transactions with a note that read, "All clean." The device time matched the bank alert timeline Nadia had saved months before. Evidence had become structure months before. The officer in the car sent the freeze request to the Cypriot bank as soon as the account number appeared in a message attachment. The request cited the local file and added a risk note about obstruction of a serious crime abroad. Within an hour, the bank responded with a temporary hold while it sought direction from its own unit. The money could not run while phones were still warm. The operations chief did not go to a cell. He sat in a quiet office and called a lawyer. The charge on the paper said document fraud, connected to waste handling and possible money laundering. A judge granted an order to retain the devices for a limited time. The man was released to a hotel with an instruction not to leave the country for a short span. The law in this jurisdiction had to act within the facts it could own. That was enough to keep the clock running. It could own. When Nadia went home that evening, she placed her phone in a drawer and stood at her window without the lights on. The plan had moved. The line between rumor and proof had shifted a little toward the center. A code word had been spoken. The clock was still running. Results appeared in small pieces, not a single blow. The devices yielded what Nadia's notes had predicted and what she had feared. The chat with FH Office included a file with a list of border e-gate entries and exits under names tied to that sponsor. One entry matched Aria's supposed departure to the hour the resort keycard showed her door opening. The list also contained a note about manual correction and a staff badge ID for a contractor in a control room. And a staff badge. The airline PNR screenshot attached to the thread had a pixel pattern that matched a printer in the family office suite, not the airline's counters. These were not rumors. They were objects. The freeze on the Cyprus account hardened into a hold after the Financial Intelligence Unit issued a formal note. A thin layer of money became difficult to reach. A court in Poland approved a narrow request to share digital evidence with a partner unit in The Hague under an existing channel for serious cross-border crime. The partner unit forwarded a summary to a liaison in Abu Dhabi that could not be ignored without leaving a trail of its own. Boxes had been ticked that did not depend on favor. Closer to the dock, small pressure showed. The waste contractor changed its name on the trade fair, listing a week later and pulled its website offline. The marina rotated its security manager to a different facility. The visitor sticker format changed, and the register went from paper to a handheld device with fewer visible fields. Gate 12's camera angle shifted slightly. These were not admissions. They were movements. The operations chief returned to his country after the short span under condition. He left behind a copy of his phone and a legal footprint. The prosecutor did not charge him with taking a life. The file was not about that. The file was about false records and money tied to those records. That was what could be carried into court here and now. The larger truth would travel on the back of that smaller case, or not at all. On the back of that, the family office issued a statement that said nothing and everything. It called rumors harmful and private life sacred. It expressed sorrow for gossip and respect for law. It did not name Aria. It did not deny that a blue drum moved at dawn near Gate 12. It did not explain why an exit in a system could appear without a face on a camera. Nadia answered the central question the only way she could. The woman did not fly out at noon. A sponsor with reach pushed an exit into the system to comb the surface. A resort keycard said she was still in a room after that supposed exit. A port camera said a sealed drum left a yacht before dawn. A logistics chain carried it under an invoice for solvent. The yacht's track on public maps stayed straight because someone chose when it would speak. Stayed straight. The mechanism was a lattice of legal power over identity, private control over space, and contracted hands that knew how to move waste without questions. There were no handcuffs for the man behind the mask. Not here. Not now. The partial disruption lived in the account that could not be touched for a while. The devices that were copied, the chat lines time-stamped and signed into a court file. The staff badge ID that now belonged to a person who would be questioned every time he crossed a border. Quiet costs add up. Aftermath was procedure. The consular desk filed an update noting evidence shared and status unknown. The financial unit closed the first phase of its file and kept the phones under seal. First phase of its Nadia sent a plain letter to Arya's family with what she could say without harming the case. It did not soothe. It did not try. It listed the artifacts and told them where the file lived and who held keys to it. Nadia changed small rituals. She checked her door twice at night. She moved her desk away from the window. She taught herself to sleep with the phone in another room. She did not post. She walked to work and kept her head down against the wind that moves through streets when a story does not end cleanly. At Mina Zayed, dawn returned daily the way it always does. Forklifts hummed at first light. The camera at Gate 12 stared past stacked pallets at a strip of quiet water. A worker wiped salt dust from his hands and pushed a drum with his foot to square a row. The frame ticked forward. The sea held its line. The frame ticked. The mask held in public, thinner now, but not broken. The case sat in files, weighty and still, waiting for the day when a border or a favor slips the other way.